As you may know, Chicago has 77 community areas, and within these 77, there are hundreds of neighborhoods that form these community areas. From Chinatown to Old Town to Wicker Park, some of these neighborhoods have transcended these community areas in popularity and importance. Neighborhoods that have true identity for themselves. There is one major instance of this located within the Lower West Side area. Welcome to Pilsen. Pilsen is a neighborhood that shines through its art and Latino population. It has gone through massive changes since Chicago's beginning in 1837. In spite of this, the one thing that has remained consistent is the spirit of the neighborhood. It is a resilient place, a neighborhood that many are proud to call their home. With its long history and strong sense of culture, Pilsen is perhaps one of the most important neighborhoods to the identity of Chicago. In this episode, I will be looking at not only Pilsen, but other topics from the Lower West Side community area as a whole. Things that aren't technically in Pilsen, depending on who you ask. Not only are some of these things important to the identity of Pilsen, but many people would informally call these parts of the Pilsen area. So with that being said, let's check it out. The Lower West Side is located south of 16th Street. Its south and east borders are the South Branch of the Chicago River, and its west boundary is the railway that runs through the area. Inside the Lower West Side are the heart of Chicago, the heart of Italy, of course Pilsen itself, and East Pilsen. Its surrounding neighborhoods are Little Village, another neighborhood with Mexican heritage, McKinley Park, Bridgeport, Chinatown, and the near West Side area, which includes the University Village. Keep that one in mind because, I think that one will be important later. The Lower West Side is also accessible via the CTA on the Pink Line. Now that we know how to get to the neighborhood, let's see how the neighborhood got to what it is today. In the early days of the city, long before the neighborhood was Pilsen, the area was populated by Irish and German immigrants. After the Great Chicago Fire in 1871, which did not affect this area, Cyrus McCormick's Reaper Company and other businesses started using this area for yards, factories, and mills. This in turn caused a boom in population for this area, as immigrants saw new job opportunities here. It became a working class neighborhood. Among some of the new residents, there was a prominent surge in Bohemian immigrants, who made up the majority of the area's population for many of the following decades. Around this time, there was a popular restaurant named At the City of Pilsen, named after the city of the same name in what is now the Czech Republic. As a result, the area of the town was dubbed Pilsen, which ended up becoming its official name. But wait, you probably noticed earlier that I said the neighborhood has a predominantly Latino population. So what caused the shift in population? Well, the answer comes in two parts. First, when Czechoslovakia gained independence in 1918, the amount of immigrants coming to America from there decreased. Then, around the time of the Great Depression and World War II, many of the factories that initially drew in many of the residents in the first place moved elsewhere. There was a vacuum of residents. The second part? Well, we have to take a trip to the University Village. Again. Welcome to the University Village, a hub of learning, culture, and science that's just west of the Loop. This area features the beauties of architecture, nature. Skip to the relevant part. Oh, sorry. In 1960, it was proposed by Mayor Richard J. Daley that the University of Illinois Chicago would be expanding to this area to make the UIC Circle campus. It was a plan that would benefit the school, but would also unfortunately mean that a lot of residents would be displaced in order to make way for this new campus. This of course affected the Italian residents of Little Italy, the Jewish residents on Maxwell Street, and Greek residents who, well, as you may have guessed, lived in Greektown. There were also many Mexican residents who had no choice but to leave the area, so they went down to Pilsen. Within a decade, the population of Pilsen was predominantly Mexican. With this growth of the Mexican population, the neighborhood saw a lot more art, which is perhaps one of the most defining traits of Pilsen. For the past half a century, Pilsen has grown to be the leading Mexican neighborhood of Chicago. And that's where we are today. Like I mentioned earlier, murals have become an integral part of Pilsen's identity. Every street you go on, you'll be greeted with artwork made by residents and outside visitors alike that make the streets as vibrant as possible. Even the 18th Street L stop is meticulously detailed with artwork. Pilsen is home to many small businesses, ranging from Mexican restaurants, coffee shops, thrift stores, the list goes on. But of course there are chains making their way to Pilsen, which is a side effect of something I will be talking about later. Going back to locally owned businesses, these show how much the neighborhood cares for one another. Take Open Books for example. The bookstore provides free books to kids and offers a sliding scale for adults. It keeps reading accessible for everybody. It's the spirit of a community. Staying in the spirit of the community, a staple of Pilsen is a place called Thalia Hall on 18th Street. It was opened in 1892. John Dusek, the founder, envisioned a public hall for the neighborhood. The building was designed by Frederick Faber and William Pagels to emulate the Opera House in Prague. Along the main theater, the building was also used for storefronts and even apartments. Thalia Hall was also used by the Bohemian National Alliance, a group founded in Chicago who pushed for the independence of Bohemia from Austria-Hungary. It eventually closed in the 60s, leaving behind this ornate theater. This still didn't stop Thalia Hall from becoming a Chicago landmark in the 80s. In 2013, Thalia Hall gained new ownership and finally reopened the following year. Since then, the theater has hosted many different artists and other acts. It is now home to Dusek's Tavern, named after the founder of Thalia Hall. Another staple of the neighborhood is the National Museum of Mexican Art. Founded in 1982, the museum serves to preserve 3,600 years of Mexican artwork. It currently has 18,000 pieces in its collection, ranging from physical to digital. It is also the only nationally accredited Mexican art museum, meaning its excellence is recognized by the American Alliance of Museums. Also worth noting in this area is a stretch of Oakley Avenue called the Heart of Italy. While you may be familiar with Little Italy a few blocks north, this micro-neighborhood traces back to the arrival of many Tuscans in the late 19th century, when a lot of factories were still present in the Lower West Side. It was actually the original Little Italy before the one on Taylor Street surpassed it in popularity. Today, the Heart of Italy is home to a few Italian restaurants and still maintains a sizable northern Italian population. Pilsen has a strong relationship with religion, with many historic churches and festivities. One of the most prominent buildings of Pilsen is St. Adalbert's Catholic Church. The building was completed in 1914 and was based off of the design of St. Paul's Basilica in Rome. The congregation served the Polish residents that lived nearby, and later the Mexican residents. However, due to declining membership and costs of maintenance, the church ended up closing its doors in 2019, and the congregation migrated to St. Paul's Cathedral down the street. The scaffolding, which has been on the towers for years, have been left dormant with no plans to remove them. If you're in the area, you might run across this decrepit, abandoned church with no interior. This used to be the Zion Evangelical Lutheran Church until it got burned down in 1976. Now it remains as a gated garden overlooked by the crucifix that survived the fire. It is now dubbed as the Ghost Church. Every year for Good Friday, the Catholic people of Pilsen hold a procession that reenacts the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Many people will march down 18th Street, including those dressed up as Roman soldiers, the people of Jerusalem, two thieves, and of course Jesus. They make their way to Harrison Park, where the crosses are located.
Mi espíritu.
Y al decir estas palabras, expiró. El capitán, al ver lo que había pasado, reconoció la obra de Dios diciendo,
There's many types of houses in Pilsen, with the majority of places being no more than 4 floors. There aren't many residential buildings taller than that, like high-rises. Well, at least as of 2023. Many of these buildings share a similar attribute in that they have a bottom floor that is lower than street level. This isn't exclusive to Pilsen, but it is very common around this part of the city. These sunken homes, as many call it, are a result of the city raising its streets in the 1850s to reduce flooding, since Chicago is naturally a swamp. Though the prices of houses in this neighborhood were once relatively affordable, the cost of living has definitely seen a significant increase in recent years. This is a result of gentrification. I can't even pronounce this word half the time. Gentrification. I believe that it would be unfair to talk about this neighborhood without talking about gentrification. It is an issue that has somewhat become synonymous with this neighborhood. In recent history, Pilsen has seen a substantial increase in gentrification. For those unaware, this is the process in which wealthier outsiders decide to move into a neighborhood, thus bringing change to the area. This isn't a problem that's only in Pilsen, obviously. Many neighborhoods on the west and south sides are also facing this. Pilsen just happens to be one of the more talked about neighborhoods when it comes to this. While it can lead to some nice renovations of buildings and services, it also comes at the cost of higher living expenses for everyone. and even the dilution of an established culture in a neighborhood. As a result, some longtime Pilsen residents are naturally unhappy about this. It's very similar to what happened back in the 1960s that caused people to migrate to Pilsen in the first place, or even decades earlier when the Czech residents left. Is Pilsen doomed to have a cyclical fate? Maybe. Or maybe not. We don't know the long-term future of anything right now. What we do know is that longtime Pilsen residents are fighting tirelessly to combat this shift. They are doing so by advocating for more affordable housing. For example, some are pushing to turn unused land into a living space designed to be accessible for many. Others are targeting the raised income tax that has been a result of this gentrification. Pilsen is a beautiful place that is the epitome of the Chicago neighborhood. Everywhere you look, you'll see history and companionship at every corner. It is very clear why many people want to preserve it. A neighborhood that has gone through so much change already deserves some time to breathe. Whatever the future has in store for Pilsen, I am hopeful that it will be in good hands. I'm Oliver Roper, and this is Checking Out Chicago.